The first time my brother told me I didn't belong in the family, he did it with a smile like it was a joke we were all supposed to laugh at. But the night of his wedding, he took it further. He leaned in close, blocked the ballroom doors with his body, and said, "Sit outside. You'll ruin the pictures." I'm Avery, and I actually started to turn away until the bride lifted a microphone and said my name like she'd been waiting for that exact moment. And suddenly, every lie my brother built his whole life on began to crack in front of everyone he ever tried to impress. People always think weddings are about love. Truth is, weddings are about power: who sits where, who gets mentioned, who gets photographed, who gets erased. And in my family, I'd been getting erased for years. My brother Ethan was the kind of man who learned early that charm could cover rot. He had the perfect smile, the golden boy career, the polished fiancé, the tailored suits, and he had a habit of treating people like furniture: useful when it matched the room, shoved into storage when it didn't. For a long time, I convinced myself that's just how siblings were. Then, little by little, I realized Ethan wasn't just mean, he was strategic, and I was one of his favorite targets. I should probably tell you how we got here, how I ended up standing outside a ballroom like a stranger, in a dress I'd paid for myself, holding a small envelope that could blow his entire life apart. Ethan and I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everything looked fine from the street. 2-story houses, trimmed hedges, Friday night football, polite waves. Inside our house, it was different. Our mom, Marianne, was soft-spoken and exhausted most of the time. She worked long hours at the clinic and still came home to cook dinner, do laundry, and make sure Ethan's life ran like a well-oiled machine. Our dad, Richard, was a man who believed boys were investments and girls were responsibilities. Ethan was his pride. I was his afterthought. When I was 13, Dad brought Ethan a new baseball glove in the middle of my choir recital, walked right into the auditorium like he owned it, and handed it to him in front of everyone. After the show, I asked, "Did you hear me sing?" Dad didn't even blink. "You sounded fine, Avery." That was the moment I learned fine meant forgettable. The older we got, the worse Ethan became. In high school, he'd steal my things not because he needed them, but because he liked watching me panic. My favorite necklace disappeared 2 days before picture day. My scholarship application got lost right before the deadline. My prom dress, my first dress that made me feel beautiful, ended up with a red stain on the front like someone accidentally spilled punch. Ethan shrugged. "That sucks. Maybe you should have been more careful." And when I cried to Mom, she'd press her lips together like she was swallowing words. "He's under pressure. Try not to provoke him. Try not to provoke him." Like existing was an offense. By the time I was 22, I'd moved out, graduated college, and built a small life that was mine. I worked as an event coordinator for a boutique hotel. I had friends who laughed loud and meant it. I dated people who didn't make me feel small for taking up space. And for a while, I barely spoke to Ethan. Holidays, birthdays, polite, distant, surface level. That was when he met Chloe. Chloe was the kind of woman people described as classy. Not in a shallow way either. She had a quiet confidence, like she didn't need to perform. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. When she smiled, it reached her eyes. The first time I met her, Ethan brought her to Mom's house for dinner. I remember she reached out her hand and said, "Avery, I've heard so much about you." I almost laughed. Ethan never talked about me unless it was to mock me. But I shook her hand and said, "Hopefully the good parts." She gave me a look, warm, curious. "I'm hoping to get the real story." Ethan cut in immediately, voice too cheerful. "Oh, Avery's a drama queen, always has been." Chloe didn't laugh. She just said, gently, "Or maybe she's just honest." I liked her right away. That should have been my warning. The moment Ethan proposed to Chloe, my phone started buzzing with messages from family like I was supposed to be excited. Mom cried on speakerphone. Dad said, "Finally Ethan's doing something right." Then Ethan called me himself. "Avery," he said, like we were close, "I need you to be normal about this." I blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means don't make anything about you. Chloe's family is particular." "Wow," I said, "congratulations to you, too." He ignored that. "We're doing a big reception. Black tie. I'll send you the details." I could hear the smile in his voice, again that same joke smile that had teeth. "Just remember," he added, "people will be watching." A month later, I got an email with a wedding invitation that looked like it belonged in a museum. Thick paper, elegant font, gold embossed initials, but tucked into the envelope was a smaller card. plain, almost like an afterthought reception seating note. Please wait for the seating coordinator at the entrance. Your placement will be assigned on arrival. Every other guest I knew had already been told where they were sitting. There were group chats about table 8 and table 3. Couples were joking about being near the dance floor or far from the bar. I hadn't been given anything, and somehow, I already knew why. 2 weeks before the wedding, I went to Mom's house to help with some last-minute favors she insisted on making by hand. Little boxes of sugared almonds tied with ribbon. Mom was wrapping ribbons with shaking fingers. Her eyes looked tired in a way that wasn't about the wedding. Are you okay? I asked. She flinched like she'd forgotten I was in the room. I'm fine, Mom, I said softly. I know that tone. She sat down hard at the kitchen table, stared at the boxers like they might start talking for her. Avery, she said quietly, Ethan is worried about appearances. I let out a slow breath. Tell me what he said. Mom's voice turned smaller. He said, he doesn't want you too visible. He thinks Chloe's family might ask questions. Questions about what? I asked, even though my heart already knew. Mom's fingers twisted the ribbon until it creased. About the past. About your father. I stared at her. My father. Mom's eyes filled with tears, and I swear the air shifted in the kitchen. Heavy and sharp. Avery, she whispered, Richard isn't your biological father. My brain stopped, like someone hit pause. What? I managed. She swallowed hard. I should have told you years ago. I wanted to, but Richard, he threatened to leave. He said he'd ruin us. And Ethan was young, and he overheard. He's known for a long time. My chest tightened. So Ethan's been using it, Mom said, breaking. Yes. The betrayal hit me in layers. Dad's coldness, Ethan's cruelty, the way my entire childhood suddenly rearranged itself into a picture that finally made sense. I stood there in the kitchen, trembling. Mom reached for my hand. I'm so sorry. I pulled my hand back gently, not because I didn't love her but because I needed air. Who is my father? I asked. Mom wiped her cheeks. His name is Daniel Harper. He was a paramedic. We met when I was volunteering at the hospital. It was brief, Avery, but it was real. Richard and I were complicated. I made a mistake. Then I found out I was pregnant. The room felt too bright. Does Daniel know about me? Mom hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. No, I said. He doesn't. I tried to reach him once, she whispered. He'd moved. I didn't know where. And Richard, he made sure I stopped looking. I couldn't even cry yet. I felt hollow, like someone scooped me out and left the shape behind. Then the anger came. Not loud, not explosive. Cold, focused. Because suddenly, Ethan's wedding wasn't just another event where he could treat me like an inconvenience. It was a stage. And my brother had been rewriting my life in secret for years. That night, I went home and dug through everything, old documents, baby books, drawers I hadn't opened since college. I found a faded envelope tucked into the back of Mom's photo album that she must have slipped into my bag without thinking. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a photocopy of a birth record with a name scribbled at the bottom. Daniel Harper, and a city. And a date. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Then I did the one thing Ethan never expected me to do. I stopped being fine. I started being intentional. Over the next week, I searched. I called hospitals. I checked social media. I found old articles. I learned that Daniel Harper was now a fire captain in a neighboring state, married, with no kids listed publicly. My hands shook as I drafted an email, then deleted it, wrote it again, then deleted it again. I didn't want to drop a grenade into someone's life, but I also didn't want to keep living inside a lie other people built for me. Finally, I wrote a simple message. Hi, my name is Avery. I think you may be my biological father. I don't want anything from you. I just need the truth. I attached a photo of my birth record, and I hit send. 2 days later, he called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Avery. A man's voice said, rough with emotion. It's you. My throat closed. I don't know. There was silence, then a shaky breath. I never knew. Marianne never told me. God, I would have been there. Tears came fast then, hot and unstoppable. I grew up thinking something was wrong with me. I choked out, like I didn't deserve anything. No, he said immediately. No, Avery, that was never you. That was people failing you. We talked for an hour. He told me about his life. I told him pieces of mine. When I mentioned Ethan, his voice went tight. You have a brother? He asked. Yes, I said carefully. He's getting married. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Avery, if you want me there, if you want support, I'll come. I looked at the envelope still sitting on my kitchen counter, the one I'd been given for the reception. Pictured Ethan blocking the doors, smiling like a knife. And I said, softly, I think I do. The wedding day arrived like a storm in slow motion. I dressed carefully, not to impress Ethan, not to earn a seat at his table, to remind myself I belonged in my own skin. When I arrived at the venue, the ballroom glowed with chandeliers and expensive laughter. Guests floated around in suits and gowns like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Ethan spotted me instantly, and his smile tightened. He approached fast, like he needed to control the scene before anything unpredictable happened. He leaned in close, voice low. You're early, I'm on time, I said. His eyes scanned me like he was inspecting a stain. Listen, we're managing the flow, so just wait outside until dinner starts. I blinked. Outside. He nodded toward the patio doors like he was pointing me to a dog run. It'll be better. Less questions. I felt my hands curl into fists. Ethan, this is insane. His smile widened. Avery, don't do this. Chloe's family is important. So I'm not, I asked. His eyes flashed with irritation. Then he hissed, you're a complication. Then he said the line that lit the fuse. Sit outside. You'll ruin the pictures. For a second, my whole life tried to repeat itself. The old pattern, the shrinking, the swallowing. I actually turned my body halfway toward the patio. Then I heard a clear voice through the speakers. Before we begin, Chloe said into the microphone, I want to thank everyone for coming, and I want to recognize someone very important to me. My stomach dropped, because she didn't say my husband. She said, Avery. Ethan froze, and every head in the room turned dark. Chloe stood near the sweetheart table in a white gown that shimmered like moonlight. She held the mic with both hands, her expression calm, but her eyes were fierce. Avery, she said again, louder, could you come up here, please? I looked at Ethan. His face had gone pale, and for the first time in my life, he looked scared. He leaned in, whispering through clenched teeth, don't you dare. I met his eyes. Watch me. I walked through the room as people parted, the way water parts around something solid. My heels clicked against the floor, and with every step, I felt like I was walking out of a cage. Chloe reached out and squeezed my hand when I got close. Then she turned to the crowd. I need to say something, she began. Tonight was supposed to be simple, but I found out something recently that made it impossible for me to stay quiet. Ethan's voice cracked. Chloe, what are you doing? She didn't look at him. She looked at me. Avery, Chloe said gently. I'm sorry you weren't told the truth sooner. A murmur rippled through the room. My heart hammered. Chloe lifted her chin. Ethan told me Avery was unstable, that she caused drama, that she was embarrassing. Gasps, people shifting, whispering. Ethan stepped forward, panic sharpening into anger. That's not what I said, Chloe cut him off, voice like steel. You said you wanted her seated out of sight. You said she would ruin the photos. You said she wasn't really family. The ballroom went dead quiet. Ethan's mouth opened, closed. Chloe continued. Then, I met Avery. I watched how she treated people. I saw how hard she worked. I listened to her without your commentary. She turned slightly and gestured toward the entrance. And then, Chloe said, I decided I didn't want to marry a man who builds his life by humiliating someone else. Ethan's face twisted. Chloe, you're making a scene. She smiled, small and sad. No, Ethan. You made the scene. I'm just turning on the lights. The doors opened. And Daniel Harper walked in. He wasn't dressed like he belonged to Ethan's polished world. He wore a simple dark suit, clean and neat, and his shoulders held the kind of strength that comes from years of carrying people out of burning buildings. His eyes found mine immediately, and they softened. The room buzzed with confusion. Chloe spoke clearly into the mic. This is Daniel Harper, Avery's biological father. A wave of sound moved through the crowd. Shock whispers, chairs scraping. Mom sitting near the front covered her mouth and started crying. Dad's face went red with fury. Ethan looked like he'd been punched. What the hell is this? Ethan snapped, turning on Mom. You brought him here. Mom shook her head, crying harder. I didn't know. Chloe's voice stayed steady. Ethan knew. He's known for years, and he used it to control Avery, to shame her, to keep her quiet. People stared at Ethan like they were seeing him for the first time, because they were. Ethan tried to laugh, desperate, ugly. This is ridiculous. You're all falling for a sob story. Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but powerful. It's not a sob story. It's a person, my daughter. The word daughter hit me like warmth on frozen skin. Ethan's jaw clenched. She's not your daughter. She's nothing. I felt the old ache rise up, familiar, but it didn't drown me this time. Chloe turned to Ethan, eyes cold. That's enough. I'm done. Ethan's mask cracked fully then. You can't do this. Do you know what people will say? Do you know what my father? Chloe laughed once. Sharp. I don't care what they say. I care what you did. Then, she did something I will never forget. She reached behind her neck and unclasped her necklaced one. Ethan had bragged about buying the family heirloom he'd insisted symbolized their legacy, and she placed it in my palm. I think, Chloe said softly, this belongs with someone who understands what family is supposed to mean. My fingers curled around the cool metal, stunned. Ethan stared at it like she'd ripped his heart out. Chloe, he choked. Please. She stepped back. No. And then she turned to the guests and said, clearly, thank you all for coming, but this wedding is over. The room erupted. Some people stood in shock. Some rushed toward Chloe asking if she was okay. Someone started filming. Someone else tried to stop them. Ethan's friends hovered, unsure whether to defend him or distance themselves. Dad shot out of his chair, face twisted. Marianne, explain yourself. Mom stood too, shaking. Richard, sit down. He looked at her like she'd slapped him. No, she said louder. I'm done being quiet. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. I let you treat Avery like she was less. I let Ethan learn cruelty from you, and I convinced myself I was protecting her by staying silent. She looked at me then, tears streaming, but I was wrong. My chest hurt in a way that felt like healing. Ethan sputtered. Mom, stop. You're humiliating us. Mom's eyes hardened. No, Ethan, you humiliated her for years. I didn't say much in that moment. I didn't need to. Because for once, the truth was speaking louder than my survival instincts. Daniel moved beside me, close but not crowding, like he was offering support without demanding anything. You okay? He murmured. I swallowed. I don't know. He nodded. That's okay. You don't have to know right now. Chloe approached me, eyes soft again. Avery, I'm sorry it took me so long to see him clearly. I shook my head. You didn't owe me anything. Chloe's lips pressed together. Maybe. But I wanted to do the right thing. Then she leaned in and whispered, also, I may have arranged the seating coordinator. There was never a table for you. My stomach dropped. So he really was going to. Chloe nodded. Yes. Heat flushed through me. The humiliation he'd planned public, deliberate. Chloe squeezed my hand. Not anymore. The aftermath wasn't clean. Ethan didn't suddenly become remorseful. He screamed at Chloe, blamed Mom, blamed me. He tried to spin it as betrayal, as if we'd plotted against him. But the truth has a way of sticking. Over the next few weeks, relatives called not to scold me, but to ask questions. Some apologized awkwardly, some were defensive. Dad tried to call me once, left a voicemail that sounded more furious than sorry. I didn't call him back. Mom came to my apartment. One evening with red eyes and a quiet determination. She didn't beg for forgiveness. She didn't make excuses. She just said, I want to rebuild. If you'll let me. I didn't forgive her in a single moment, but I let her sit with me. I let her tell the truth, and that was a start. Ethan didn't come around, and, honestly, that was the most peaceful part. A month after the wedding, I met Daniel for coffee in my city. He brought a small photo album, the kind parents carry like a secret hope. I didn't have pictures of you, he said, voice thick, so I started collecting them now, from social media, from Marianne, from wherever I could. Is that weird? I laughed through tears. Kind of sweet. He slid the album toward me. Inside were photos of me at work events, group shots with friends, one screenshot from an old video where I was laughing. He looked at me like I was something precious. I can't fix the years, he said quietly, but if you want me in your life now, I'm here. I stared at him for a long time. Then, I nodded. I want that. And Chloe became one of the most unexpected pieces of my healing. We met for lunch sometimes. She told me how she'd noticed Ethan's cruelty in small moments, how he mocked waiters, how he dismissed her opinions, how he always had to be right. She admitted she'd ignored those signs at first, because she was tired of dating, and wanted to believe in something stable. But when she discovered how he treated me when she found the messages where he called me a liability, a mistake, not even real family, Something in her snapped into clarity. I realized, she told me once, that if I married him, one day I'd be begging him to stop doing that to our kids. I shuddered. You saved yourself. She nodded. And I helped you. That matters to me. She wasn't perfect. That matters to me. She wasn't perfect, but she was brave. And I'll always respect her for that. The revenge everyone expects is usually loud, screaming, slapping, throwing cake. But my revenge wasn't chaos. It was truth. It was walking into a room where I was told I didn't belong, letting everyone see that the person who didn't belong was the one who built his identity on cruelty. Ethan wanted me outside, invisible. Instead, I stood at the center of the room while his lies collapsed. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a shadow in my own story. I felt like the author. If you've ever been treated like you were too much, too inconvenient, or not important enough to be included, remember this: their cruelty is not your truth. If this story hit you somewhere personal, take a second to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to reclaim your place in a family or relationship that tried to erase you? And no matter what anyone told you, you belong.